Live. All right, I think we're live. I think if everything's working right.
I believe we are. Oh, well, it would probably help if I don't have the stream going. I was wondering, I was like, oh my gosh, I can hear the stream. It's only because I haven't loaded up and didn't mute it.
If we can get a yay or nay on the audio, please, in the chat, we'd be appreciative. Appreciative. I can't even, it's going to be one of those days where I can't talk worth a shit.
Oh, I hope you're not expecting better out of me. I'll stumble the way through our native language.
Yeah, I won't even do that much. Definitely not. So we've already started recording, which is good. Audio is
on top of things.
Crucial.
Wait, I mentioned it, but I didn't ask you. Did you put your phone on Do Not Disturb?
It is, yes.
Perfect.
I don't think it ever actually made it off of silent this morning. Just because I'm pissed off at it. It's been having so many problems. I need to buy a new phone. It's the stupidest thing. Unfortunately, I'm a big OnePlus fan. Mm-hmm. And I have been for years. But their quality control on software updates has just gone down the shitter.
Really, to be honest, I can't comment on it. I've never owned a OnePlus phone. I've heard great things about them. Never tried them out myself.
Well, like they said, they used to be really good, and their hardware is still really good, but their software has just been crap lately. It's really disappointing. And I will not buy a Samsung phone, so that's pretty much leaving me with going towards like a mid-range no-name phone or buying an iPhone.
I don't know about an iPhone.
I'm not opposed to buying an iPhone. I've switched back and forth between iOS and Android more times than I can count. So it's not a big deal, but
I mean, I would say just go the full FOSS route and get a Linux phone. But then I know a critical thing for you is Clash of Clans, and that sort of breaks down on a Linux phone.
There's a ton of applications on the phone that I use all the time, so I couldn't go full Linux.
Yeah.
I wish I couldn't say.
Oh, good. Lewis is on Linux now. Good to hear, man.
All right, I think we can go ahead and get started.
I believe so.
This is our first attempt doing this podcast live, so, and I don't know if you know this, but we're not the best planners, so we have no plan for actually how we're going to do this. So I think we're just going to do this like we normally would, and the only thing that's different, there's going to be people watching. So you'll get to see you'll get to see exactly how the sausage is made, but really there's not going to be anything different other than you'll get this little bit here at the beginning where we just chat for a little while and get ready to set up, and then I'm going to say the magic words. Will start, and that's what you'll get tomorrow in the recorded podcast. So although we will probably pay attention to the chat halfway through. Tyler, what would you think about midway through, if we have a little bit of time, asking for some questions? That'd be fun.
Oh yeah, I'd like it.
That'd be something different than what we can't do that when it's just us.
Yeah.
So there's nobody to ask questions to. So if you have questions, hold on to them. Midway through, we'll ask for some questions if we have a little bit of time, which I'm sure we will, because at least my news link isn't something that we can spend a ton of time on.
That's pretty much same.
I just want to bitch about dates for a little while. like nobody knows when the birthday is, man. All right, that's a little teaser. All right, getting started. Wake up, Matt. Time to get going. I do that every week too.
There's a reason I'm drinking a Kickstarter, man.
I have Gatorade, but it has no energy in it. There's no caffeine in that thing, as far as I know. All right. Hey everybody, welcome back to LinuxCast. I'm your host, Matt. I'm joined by Tyler. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Good. So I hear that a certain amount of years ago today, you came into the world and you said, I arrived. So happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Many happy returns, as they say. So other than getting another year older and another year grayer, what have you been doing on Linux this week?
Well, living life without a bar in DWM, which is actually turned out to be really, really nice. It forced me to make a whole bunch more bash scripts for the functionality that I would typically just do in the bar, which is really nice. I really like it. It's forced me into doing a whole bunch more bash scripting this past week. It's been a lot of fun. So, on that same vein, what have you been up to this week in Linux?
Well, I have also been doing a little bit of scripting, but not nearly as much as you. I watched some of that stream. I was like, you streamed 2 days in a row, 6 hours one time, like 5 hours the next time. Like, dude, that's some dedication right there.
I love streaming, man. I love it.
I can do it exactly one time a week. Although if we end up doing this live every week, I'll end up doing it twice every week, and that scares the crap out of me. But yeah, anyways, I'm working on a script that will allow me to change rices for whatever window manager I'm using. So that should be fun. And if I can swing it, it would be great to have the script just restart the window manager at the end of it. So it just hit a key binding and I can go to a different rice just by hitting a key binding. That'd be so cool. That's my plan anyways. We'll see how that works out. I have a feeling that it's probably not going to work out as well as I hope it would, but my brain says it's going to be awesome. Anyways, I've also been working on the website for the channel and the podcast. So I'm knee deep in CSS and HTML, and I've come to realize that I don't know HTML and CSS worth a damn. I used to be really good at HTML and CSS. When I had a website doing a tech blog or whatever, and was messing around with all that kind of stuff, I was pretty good at it. I mean, I'm not professional or anything, but that's been at least 10 years, and or I mean maybe 8 or 9 years. And man, am I rusty! I do remember how to make a link, which is a good start. But I'm surprised I remember that much. I used to remember all that stuff, but man.
And one thing I will say about CSS, I've been hearing this quite a bit, is like nowadays with a whole bunch of the like dark theme plugins and stuff, when you're trying to do like some nifty things with CSS, it'll just break, like just one plugin will just break your entire site.
Yeah, everything is so finicky now, especially with all those JavaScript libraries and stuff. It's really weird. All right, so I promised myself each week that I'm going to get the contact info down to like 2 or 3 lines. I haven't got there yet. But we're getting close. So if you're interested in following us or any of that kind of stuff, you can do so on Twitter at LinuxCast. You can subscribe to all of our audio feeds and stuff like that at linuxcast.org. Eventually, that's where the website I'm working on will be, but it's not there yet. Give it a while. Don't hold your breath, because I don't want you to pass out or die. Anyways, if you want to get in contact with us via email, you can do so. Email at linuxcast.org. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/linuxcast. You can support Tyler, who goes by Zany, on Odyssey and YouTube. Those links will be in the video description below. And you can subscribe to the LinuxCast on YouTube at YouTube. I almost made it all the way through, man. You can
almost.
Oh, so I was like, that's close. You can subscribe to the LinuxCast on YouTube at youtube.com/linuxcast. That was both better and worse than normal. So
I don't know, man. Like to be honest, making it through that entire thing smooth is difficult as heck. It's laid out in a way where there's just so many links.
Well, and you have to use the same word. So contact us via email at. It just feels weird having the word there twice. And then subscribe to the LinuxCast at youtube.com/linuxcast has the word there twice. So it's just, as a writer, you're not supposed to use the word in the sentence twice in a row, and it's just, it really messes with my brain, and it's not. then it's early in the podcast. Usually somewhere about halfway through the news is when I decide to wake up. So we should just push this after the news, and then it would be fine. There has to be a running pool out there. When will Matt mess up the contact information? And usually it's the winner is at the Twitter part.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone's more focused on when you're going to do a full Gentoo install live.
I have a Patreon goal. Patreon.com/LinuxCast. And that Patreon goal is arbitrarily high is definitely on purpose.
Let's be real. You're your own best sponsor.
Yeah. All right. So each and every week, Tyler and I scour the internet to try to find at least one link each of news that we can share with each other. So this week is no different. Tyler, what is your news link of the week?
Mine is Elementary OS 6 is getting its first big post-release update. And this was actually posted 50 minutes ago. So this is a fresh news article here. And so apparently what we're going to see inside of this Elementary OS 6 update is a whole bunch of more compatible apps in the App Center, which... Thank God.
At least it's not less compatible apps like it was last time.
Yes, it's much needed. And then here's the big one that I think is, I think is probably addressing the fact that so many of us were criticizing this about Elementary OS 6 when we all tried it out. The App Center will now show a link to FlatHub if there's no search results. So it's at least smart enough to know, hey, if you're searching and it's not here, you need to go to FlatHub and install it there. And then it'll open up the program again, and you can install it there. And then you most likely won't have the problem of no search results again. Still, not necessarily the best fix, in my opinion.
Why don't they just integrate FlatHub into the App Store?
Yes.
I mean, that's just the way it should be. I mean, even the Ubuntu store is, they integrate from Snapcraft.io or whatever, SnapHub, whatever the hell it's called. So I mean, it's obviously possible. I mean, I don't understand why do they think they have to go through and approve every single app that's in their store if they're going to use FlatHub?
Precisely my point. Like, it just make it easy to use for everyone. But I mean, we gotta. I think that's just one of the issues in the Linux space that we're gonna have to overcome when it comes to developing in a lot of areas. We're not really even the built distros built for new users still assume stuff about new users because we're in a niche that you shouldn't assume about a new Linux user. Understanding that going to FlatHub is going to magically make more software appear in the software center is not something you should assume whatsoever.
Well, and I think it would be safe to assume that if you're a new user, you would probably want to be able to download certain pieces of software that are necessary for, using your computer for things like browsing the web and office tasks and things like that. And you can't download, at least prior to this point, you couldn't download things like Firefox. You can download things like Google Chrome. You can download things like LibreOffice. I mean, I can understand the whole Google Chrome thing. You may not want to host that in your software store. Fine. But Firefox, I mean, that shit's open source, man. That's supposed to... Even the most die-hard fans of Elementary OS aren't using Epiphany. I'm going to tell you that right now. The most die-hard fan out there, the guy who runs it day in and day out and just loves that shit to death, is not using Epiphany. They've used Epiphany, but then they probably used it to download Google Chrome, or they used it to download Firefox. That's the whole... When Edge used to be, really terrible, like when it was just Microsoft's thing, it wasn't based on Chromium, that's what you used Edge for, was to download Chrome. on Windows, right? So, because that's how you download shit on Windows is by going to the web store. And wait a minute, that's what you have to do with elementary OS is go to the web to download things. This seems like awful lot like Windows. When like, what are we doing here?
It's just, I will give this to them. At least it's getting better. At least it's getting better, because elementary OS 6 out of the gate was not hitting their target category of people, which is just hilarious, but is what it is.
I mean, we go on and on about this, but just one last thing. For a distribution that has so much positive, or not, it has so many people that want to like it. I mean, because, it's good looking. It used to have a ton of software, and the development team seems to be very interactive with the community. It's, it's theoretically could be possibly the best new user distro out there. I mean, if they want it to be. But every time they do something weird, it just sets them so far back and pisses so many people off. And yeah, it's really Ryan says thoughts on Gentoo. The whole chat sat down there's like Gentoo. You know what? No. Go to your corner, you Gentoo fools. All right, anyways, moving on. So, my link of the week is that supposedly GNU/Linux turned 30 years old a few days ago. And why I say supposedly is because no one's actually agreed on this date, because technically what they're celebrating is the email that Linus Torvalds sent to whoever. I guess it was in a mailing list. Announcing that he was working on Linux. That was the 30th anniversary. The actual first kernel wasn't released until at least sometime in October, I think. And as DT pointed out yesterday in his video, GNU actually started being developed in the mid 80s. So it was very entertaining this past week to see videos, to see articles like the one I'm showing on screen now. Happy 30th birthday, Linux. And it wasn't just FOSS related websites. This was on the Register and the Daily Telegraph or Telegram or whatever the hell it's called, and ZDNet was on there, had 30 hold on a second, folks. Let's just for a second hold on. Let's see if we can agree on a date first, and then we can start celebrating 30 years. It's really, really weird that we can't kind of get together on the fact that, we can't get together and agree on a date where Linux actually was created, because the first distros weren't actually released for a couple of years after that. Debian didn't come out until 1993, I don't think. So, and that was one of the first two distros. The other one was Slackware. Is that it? I don't know.
Maybe.
I have no idea. I was 7 years old. You were what, 2?
I was born in 97, so.
You're born in holy shit, man. You are youngin'. You weren't even you were almost born with Ubuntu.
Exactly. Yep.
That's hilarious. You are young, man. Wow. And you
I'm
still
the baby of the community.
I thought you were a little older now, and I'm a little uncomfortable. Are you even allowed to go into a bar yet, Tyler?
Oh yeah.
Barely.
Just a few years ago.
Call me back when you're allowed to vote there, youngin'. All right. So, anyways, that was a stupid link. That was a stupid thing that came in, happened to the community this week too, because I just got to understand it. All right, so before we jump into the main topic, let's ask for questions, and if it has anything to do with Gentoo, I'm banning you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section below, and then we'll answer them. So, native gaming on Linux, is it important?
That's a good question.
This was your topic, so why don't you cut us off and we'll wait for those questions to come in. No sense in just awkward silence while nobody asks a question.
I honestly don't think native gaming is is all that important, because here's the thing, it's going to happen no matter what. Just like anything else in the world, it's going to happen. Linux might not, hold a big market share. However, it still happened. Like FOSS creation might not be the focal point of all software creation. It's still going to happen. So it's not like a native Linux gaming is ever going to die, but it honestly doesn't need to be the focus. I think what Valve is doing is very, very smart in pushing for develop your game for whatever platform, whether it be for Windows or whatever, and it's just gonna work everywhere else. Takes effort off of developers, and Valve is one of those companies where they're not Google. They don't just create something and kill it off next year because they just, it's whatever. It's Google. They just kill off products left and right because. So I don't really think it's all that important. Would you disagree?
All right. So my question, as I usually do, I answer these questions with questions. I should be a psychologist. My question would be is, does native Linux gaming make games better? And I think we can answer that question is sometimes. Sometimes native Linux gaming is better than having a Proton thing, because as much as we like rah Proton, there are some cases, and it's actually fairly common, where the Proton implementation of a game is kind of terrible. I mean, it's just kind of bad. Or your game doesn't launch, or you have to go through and install 9,000 different dependencies, like you're trying to install Plasma or something, So I mean, there are situations where the native port of a game is actually a better experience for people using Linux. That being said, I 100% agree with you that it does take focus away from the actual getting of the game running well on Windows, and then maybe them making it work well in Proton. If they put their focus on making their game work well in Proton, then we don't need a native game. Now, those developers that don't care about Proton either, they were never going to make a native port of Linux anyways. So,
yeah. Man, Buddy was ready to pass out before the stream started. Now he's like, play again?
So Ryan in the chat says, question for Matt, thoughts on Buddy? My thoughts on Buddy is he needs to pipe down, bro. No, I love Buddy. He's great. I feel like we're good friends, Buddy and I.
He's friends with everybody.
I do find it hilarious. You guys might not know this about Tyler, but he's always talking about going out with buddies. Like, he has a bunch of friends, he calls them buddies. So it's not ironic that he called his dog Buddy. I'm just saying. So either he's named it after a bunch of his friends, his group of friends, or he named it after the elf. It's possible. Let's see here. What else? What other questions we got? Matt, thoughts on Enog Linux? Never heard of it.
Never heard of that either.
Is that pronounced eunuch? He is a eunuch. Snip, snip.
Oh, someone did have two questions. I like these. So, what's your favorite distro? I'm going to make a guess on this one for you. It's Arco. Am I wrong?
It is Arco. Yes, Arco is my favorite. Do you actually have a favorite distro? You hop way more than I do.
Mm-hmm. My favorite distro is Arch, and just hands down, just mainline Arch. But I have found a very deep respect, and it comes in second is Void Linux. It's very nice. Really like it. I would be on Void and continuing to use it if it wasn't for my VPN. Seriously, it's a very large VPN, private internet access, not understanding that the only init system out there is not systemd. Like, it only recognizes systemd. That's it.
Don't they have like an open VPN bridge or something that you could use?
To be honest, I know nothing about OpenVPN. I know how to download the install script. for private internet access and run it, and that's about as far as I know when it comes to VPNs, OpenVPN, all of that type of stuff. That's it. That's all I know.
So apparently ONEC, or whatever the hell it's called, is the old name for Gentoo. Of course it is. Thoughts on Core Boot? Do you think it's worth it?
No.
Okay,
it's not.
I'm gonna go with Tyler there and say no.
No.
Google as ads company, they kill anything until they are fed up with ads by ads money. Okay. Okay, so we kind of got distracted there by the main topic. That's okay. If we do this live again, we'd have a dedicated quick question section, but it's hard to ask for questions and then wait for the questions to come in and not have anything to do while you're waiting. So, yeah, so that was definitely something that we'll have to plan further in the future. Actual question, though. More and more people are asking me for a beginner-friendly Linux distro. The more people find out I use Linux exclusively, I have no idea what to recommend.
So what would we recommend?
I would recommend either something like Linux Lite or Sparky Linux. Both of them are really, really good. And they don't come with the political connotations of something like Linux Mint or Elementary OS. If you use those, you're going to get embroiled in their conflicts with Ubuntu. I would not recommend straight up Ubuntu just because it doesn't look anything like Windows. So use something that looks like Windows. So maybe if you had to choose one, like Cinnamon, the Cinnamon spin of Ubuntu would probably be a good one. What do you think?
My recommendation would be completely different. And again, I agree with your recommendations. I think they're good. I mean, there's so much to recommend that's good that it's hard not to have a different one. But mine would just be Manjaro, only because I know some people have their problems with Manjaro, but my thing with Manjaro is it makes rolling release pretty easy. Whether you're not like you like the style of it out of the gate, it's Linux. You can change that. Like. I'm pretty sure a new user will eventually find that out and be really surprised because Manjaro does make it really easy to change themes and all that stuff. But at the very least, when it comes, I like recommending Manjaro to new Linux users because a lot of the times I don't know their hardware, and if it's something newer, something like a Linux Mint or something like that, it's because the kernel's so old.
That's a good point.
It's not going to work for them.
Yeah. I'd love to be able to recommend Arco. I really would, but it's just it's not like new user friendly. It's just laptop or PC for home use. Depends on how much space you have. I'd say.
And if you would like the opportunity of like when you decide you want to go somewhere to at least take your computer with you, that's what I like about having my main workstation be my laptop.
Yeah, I don't go places. So I have no problem with just having a desktop. So I gotta have laptops. They're all old as fuck, and they don't work very well. So that's just, I mean, I always miss my multiple monitor setup. So do you agree with that the best web browsers are starting with E? Which one is your favorite, Edge or Epiphany? I'm never gonna live that down.
Never. To be honest, this is going to be crazy, but out of the two of those, I would rather use Edge than Epiphany. Epiphany is so bad. It's so bad.
All right, so in defense of Edge, it is a very good web browser. If it was made by anybody else, literally anybody else other than Google, like if it was made by, I don't know, Joe Schmo's web browser company, people would use the crap out of it. It's really, really good. The only reason why 95% of the people who subscribe to my channel hate it is because it's made by Microsoft. That's literally the only reason why. And those 95% of people, or the vast majority of those guys, never tried it.
Well, I mean, I've tried it, and even if it wasn't made by Microsoft, I wouldn't use it. But I mean, I would still recommend it compared to it not being owned by a company that just does bad stuff. typically. But anyway, Edge is just a Chromium browser with some really good and sensible like plugins or extensions built into it. Mm-hmm. It's nice. Like it is nice. I mean, it would be really good if it didn't beg you for a Microsoft account.
Yes, they always make you to sign in. They always want you to sign in. But see, the thing is, I have a Microsoft account. I just use that for, they don't know my real name. They don't know my real age. They've never had a credit card or address or anything like that. So, and the Hotmail account that I have, I use that whenever I need to sign up for something that I just know is going to spam the crap out of me. So I just add everything there. Same with the Yahoo account that I have. Because Yahoo was the first email address that I ever had like on my own before I went to college and got a college email. And then I used the college email address until they kicked my ass off. like it was two years after I left school. I was using that. Let's see here. I always recommend Manjaro or Arch for programmers. I'm considering installing on what I'm assuming he means Linux from scratch in a VM this weekend. Good for you. I tried it by like Firefox, where I'm assuming you mean Edge. What if Edge would be made by Apple? Still the same opinion. Well, if Edge was made by Apple, it wouldn't have nearly as many features because they'd pull all that shit out. So it would therefore not be as good of a browser.
Well, I will say this: if Edge was made by Apple, my opinion of it would be much better, only because Apple, when it comes to their, like, there's a real benefit when it comes to syncing your stuff up with an Apple ID, and Apple is a company that takes privacy very seriously. Like, Apple understands that their bottom line is not improved by selling your data in mass. What it is held up by is you buying a computer that cost them $400 to make for $3,000. That's their bottom line. And guess what? There's millions of people doing it every year, so they're good.
If there's enough suckers out there to pay that much money for one of their pieces of, whatever, good on them. That's a good business model if there's people out there who do it. I like F Society says I like Safari. I don't know whether or not he's being sarcastic or not.
I've used it before. It's not terrible, but it's not the best browser out. I mean, Chrome still does, even though I don't like Google, Chrome still beats the hell out of Safari in performance.
Which is weird because they're both WebKit-based browsers. I mean, it's just really weird. So we were talking before we started recording that my phone is going to shit because OnePlus keeps pushing out updates that just continually make it worse and worse. So I've been thinking about getting a new phone, and one of the options is getting an iPhone. The thing that really makes me worry about getting an iPhone is that every browser on there, it has to be based on Safari. Like every single one, they won't let you base it on anything else. Even Chrome is based on Safari on the iPhone, and that would.
So wait, so you can't even get Firefox?
You can download Firefox, but it's based on Safari. Like it uses the Safari web engine because Apple will not allow alternative web engines on iOS. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. They call it for security. I'm sure that's exactly the reason why. Thoughts on Kiss Linux? I've never heard of Kiss Linux. You ever heard of Kiss Linux? Keep it simple, stupid Linux? What is it? I've never heard of it.
It's a good example of explaining, because it is essentially just a super simple distro where you have to. It's simple, not in ease of use or ease of installation, but it's simple in the way that you install it. It's Musel based. They do have people, I know will throw this in the comments, there is a glibc version of it, which if you're going to use Steam or something like that, you're going to need gkiss instead of just regular old Kiss. But Kiss is a distro where you're going to have to set up and install everything. Like, you pick out everything that you want, and it's a very simple to manage and simple to install operating system. There's not a lot of steps to it. I mean, as long as you consider picking out your own Linux kernel and everything, not having just a simple option to just install the kernel, like you need to pull it down, build it, make it yourself, and then move on. As long as that part's simple for you, the whole thing's simple. It's very nice. Okay. I wouldn't recommend using it though for particularly people like us. I know you don't spend a ton of time playing games, but you still do, and you have your Steam library. KISS is not oriented for gamers one bit.
Okay. It doesn't sound all that interesting to me. All right, so somebody asked, or I think it's Umka. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your name. What hardware incompatibility or lack of support in Linux is still pissing you off? Webcam support, bro. This webcam here costs $180. It's one of the top webcams on the market. It's like the top webcam you can buy before you have to start actually buying like an actual fucking camera. And it is utter garbage on Linux. It is so bad. People don't actually see the stuff because at least in the videos I make, I cut a lot of the stuff out. But for every once in a while, you'll just get green artifacting in this camera. And I don't know why.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Like, it's so stupid. Like, it makes me want to take and just throw it across the fucking room because it just drives me absolutely bonkers. So yeah, webcam support is just of all the, like, you can plug a keyboard in, it'll work. Most printers you can get to work. Mice, audio interfaces, all that stuff. Even as much as we bitch about Pulse Audio, for the most part, that stuff just works. Webcams though, utter garbage. There's like no support out there for them at all because all of them require this fucking proprietary exclusive software in order to update their firmware and stuff, and you can't get it to work on Linux unless you're like a Uber hacker or something. So yep. I went so far as to install Windows on that computer back there in order to upgrade the firmware, and it didn't work because the software was garbage. So that would be my answer to that question.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I mean, you mentioned it, but Pulse Audio for me, the hardware incompatibility that drives me crazy is when it comes to newer laptop stuff. I mean, if your laptop's newer than a couple years, even on the latest Linux kernel, you're probably still going to run into some weird issues where you'll have to shoot a kernel command to keep the graphics cards in your computer from switching automatically because that can cause issues. And then your internal sound card will just crap to bed sometimes. And if you boot your computer up with a whole bunch of audio or USB interfaces plugged in, I believe that's just a Pulse Audio problem, but I'm going to chalk it up to just Linux as a whole because I've experienced it in so many distros. There's only one that I haven't experienced in, and Void, you're beautiful. Thank you.
Somebody asked if Gentoo is $350. I'm assuming that's for the Patreon goal. How much for Slackware install? The thing is I know jack shit about Slackware. I've never even looked at a video of somebody installing it, so I would have no clue whether or not that's more difficult than Gentoo or less difficult than Gentoo. I'm assuming, based on that question, that it's probably more difficult than Gentoo, but I have no clue. I don't think you got to worry. I'm at like $74 now, so we got a ways to go there, bro. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to the main topic. That was a nice little intermission for some questions. So native Linux gaming, we kind of answered the question, but here's another good question. Do you think that for the bigger studios that native Linux gaming is probably just going to be gone completely?
Yes. For AAA studios, they've already really, I mean, Rocket League is the perfect example of a AAA studio that was focusing, or at least paying Linux gaming its proper, attention, and then just stopped. So I think with Valve pushing Proton and stuff and making it seem like there's really no reason to focus on native gaming, for bigger studios, man, it just won't happen.
Yeah, I agree. The question we have to then ask is, are we disappointed with that? And I think my answer to that question would be, it depends on whether or not they focus on Proton. If those studios actually put some effort into making their Proton compatibility, really good, then I don't think we'll actually miss the native Linux stuff. If we get what we have now, which is basically them focusing on Windows or maybe Macintosh, and it works on Proton just because Steam and Valve are wizards, and it just kind of works, which is basically what we have now. We hope and pray in miracles. Then it's going to be, well, I really wish there was a native thing for this, or at least they focus on Proton, because this is a crap experience. Either you're getting 15 frames per second and it's unplayable, or it won't launch, or it crashes, or something like that. I mean, you gotta remember, I'm not a gamer, but the vast majority of my experiences, at least so far with Proton, have not been all that pleasant. I subscribed to the EA Pass in Steam the other day. It was like $30 for a year. It's like, this is a really good buy. $30 for a year, and you get all these games. You get Madden, and you get all these racing games and stuff like that. None of those things actually work on Linux worth a damn. Even Battlefield 2, which has like a platinum rating on Proton DB, I couldn't get to launch. Like, it just won't launch.
I haven't tried that one yet, so
it's really, it's just, I'm assuming that there's a dependency or something there that I'm missing, but that's not a good experience. And you go out and spend $600 on a Steam Deck, and that's your experience. You're not going to be a very happy camper, like at all. So
I will say one thing: I am really hoping that a lot of the rumors being spread are true, where it's going to end up where we're going to get like a massive update to Proton like right before they start shipping the Stream Decks.
Yeah, I think, because that's what everybody's hoping. Like, everybody's hoping that anti-cheat's going to be there, DRM is going to be fixed, and Proton's going to have this sudden leap forward in terms of being compatible with games that it only has been mediocrely supportive of in the past. I think we're all going to be massively disappointed.
I'm hoping not, but I'm not. I'm still taking the hope with a grain of salt,
Yeah, I'm just, maybe it's the pessimist in me, because I am very much a half empty, or whatever the hell it is,
glass half full.
Yeah, whatever. Cup half empty. But I am from the north. I shouldn't be using these southern things. So, but maybe it's just the way I look at the world, and I just don't expect it to happen. So I'd be pleasantly surprised if it happens, but I fully expect the Steam Deck to come out in December or January, and I bet I would expect it to be not as good as people had hoped, which will be sad, because Battlefront 2 is a game that is really old. Is really old at this point. I remember playing at least one of the Battlefront games, the Star Wars Battlefront games, in high school, and I've been out of high school, good Lord, for, I don't know, almost 20 years at this point. So, and that's not even, I graduated in 2004. So, you weren't even 10 years old when I was graduating high school, bro.
I'm such a youngin'.
Yeah. So that's how old that game franchise is. And the fact that it doesn't work on Linux, and it may not, or at least not for me, this is from a personal experience, that just keeps pointing me towards the fact that I'm very worried about the Steam Deck's release, because there's so many examples of things just not working in Proton. So,
but I think, to go back to the main topic, I would ask you this: do you think there will be a negative outcome of more developers not focusing on making Linux a priority?
I think that probably not, because let's face it, there's not a ton of game studios out there focusing on native Linux stuff right now. There's just really not. The ones that focus on native Linux gaming are making open source games, TuxCart and things like that. Those game studios, if you really want to call them, 3 guys in a garage, a game studio, they're going to continue making Linux games. This has no bearing on them whatsoever. The vast majority of games in Steam that are Linux compatible and actually have a Linux game or Linux port or whatever, the vast majority of those companies are probably going to continue on doing the same stuff they've always done. And let's face it, most of those games are pretty old at this point too. And we've been bitching for years because the dependencies for those games have moved on, and a lot of those don't work very well, even though they say they work on Linux. So that's been a problem for quite a while too. So as for making it a negative impact on Linux or whatever, I just don't see, because native Linux gaming has never been that big. If all we had, all right, let's put it this way. If all we had was native Linux gaming, we would never be talking about Linux gaming at all, because all we'd be talking about is how there are no games on Linux. Of the Steam library, like what, 20% or something like that, some really small number actually runs on Linux natively. So nobody cares.
A lot of those games that do run natively, it's mostly because of Steam that they ever started running natively and focusing on, like, Killing Floor really wouldn't, like, which is one of my favorite Linux native games. I play it way more than I should. That game, one of the main reasons it has a native Linux port is because it's easy to distribute it and easy to sell it through Steam. So
yeah, it really all comes, everything we talked about could be completely obsolete if the Steam Deck fails, because then it will just go back to the way it was, I think. I don't think it's possible that Steam will try again eventually. It's like 2 or 3 years down the road. But if the Steam Deck fails, the games that already support Linux are just going to continue to support Linux as they have. They'll continue to get older and unsupported and all that stuff, but that's the way games are. And we'll have Proton probably be there. My only worry about the Steam Deck failing is that, and we've talked about this before, is if it fails, does Steam then stop supporting Proton nearly as much as it used to? Because then maybe they just give up. That's a little worrying for me, because I fully expect the Steam Deck to completely flop. I mean, a lot of people are going to buy it right out of the gate, but those initial reviews are going to be very negative. I just have a feeling, and it's just, again, my negativity of viewing the world, just, it's just telling me that people are going to try to load up Call of Duty on that Steam Deck, and it's not going to run, or it's going to need, dependencies downloaded from the AUR, and I can just see. You watched that video of that guy from The Verge build the computer. He's going to be He's going to be the same guy who reviews this probably, and then in order to get the thing, he's going to have to figure out how to download something from the AUR. It's going to be utter hilarity.
That poor man, dude. I've never seen someone abuse a computer before it's even built like that.
I don't think he still works for The Verge, and I also don't think he's ever shown his face on the internet again.
No, he got fired. Then he set his mind in a little video after that. And then after people crapped on his response to it and how childish he was, I don't think he's really graced the internet with his presence since.
I know I wouldn't show my face if that. Like, I'm not a professional computer builder. Like, I've only done it a couple times, but I did a way better job than he did, and I did that from YouTube tutorials. I mean, he didn't watch a single YouTube tutorial.
Yeah, like Linus Tech Tips, man. His whole channel's built on that. You didn't watch one video?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, LTT did like a build guide like once a week when that channel first started out. That was what he did. What they did. It was in a kitchen. You know? Yeah. It's really weird. All right. So, anything else to say on native Linux gaming before we move to the picks of the week?
I don't think so.
All right, good. All right, so each and every week, Tyler and I think about things that we've used on Linux over the last week that are important or that we've, fiddled with or something, and we call them picks of the week because that's the most original name we could come up with. And that was sarcasm. So, Tyler, why don't you tell us what your pick of the week is?
Mine is, I'm sure a lot of you are using it. You might be using something else, but it's Dunst, and it's a little program to get, just show you notifications when apps want to, send you a notification. And I really like Dunst. Haven't had a problem with using it. It's very reliable, easy to use, and easy to configure. The config that I'm using for Dunst, I really like it. Notifications are big, but not insanely big. It will display a much larger notification. Like, I've got a nifty little script that I read. Good Lord, English.
It's writ.
That I wrote.
Don't worry, he had a stroke. It's all right. He's back.
Just a minor one. It's all good. But it's a little program that it'll pick a time randomly between 30 minutes and 3 hours and shoot me out a nice little humbling insult just to keep that ego in check, and it pipes it through CalSay, so it's this large notification. I really like the fact that Dunst handles it very well.
That's cool. I have Dunst installed, but it doesn't work for me. It used to, but now that I think about it, I haven't seen a notification on my system in ages. And I have it running on startup, so something obviously is messed up there. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, Dunst is awesome. I love being able to theme it. If your program can't let me theme it, then it's dead.
It's a problem.
Yeah, and I mean actual theming, not just choose a dark theme. like Elementary OS, that's not theming. That's just choosing a dark theme. It's okay. It's better than it used to be, but it's not. Okay, so speaking of theming, there is a few of these programs out there that are kind of like this, and before we talk about it, we should just notice, if you use this program to theme your Discord, it's called PowerChord, just know that you're violating the Discord terms of service. You are. I mean, it's just the way their terms of service is laid out. So if you install this, just know that that's a thing. You could theoretically be kicked off Discord for using this. It has not happened to individual users. They have blocked apps like this before, but that's usually just kicking out the developers. So, anyways, PowerChord allows you to theme your Discord. It also has a few plugins and stuff like that. But as you all know, I have been trying to make everything Grubbox themed, and Discord was the next thing on the list. And there is a very nice Grubbox theme for Discord. And it uses PowerChord in order to install. It's better than Simple Chord, I think it's called. The other one is called, because it doesn't actually take up a ton of resources. The Simple Chord one was taking up like 2 or 3% of my CPU just constantly, and that was just really annoying, right? This one does not do that. The only problem with this one is that you have to be using the development branch of Discord in order to use it. So you have to be using Discord Canary in order to have this work at all. And that means you're going to be getting updates like all the time. I mean, like literally all the time. So this will definitely work better for you if you're on something that has Arch, where you can actually get those updates really quick. So, let's see. Last thing on the chant. The chant. No, I've had my stroke. It's okay. Theming is time consuming. Color adjustment is not easy. I spend all my time theming, so it's okay. Writing is good.
Love theming.
What are the best fonts on Linux with icon support? Nerd fonts.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to get that nerd fonts and choose. If you don't have good internet connection, just choose one. Then you can just download that one font, because downloading the whole thing is like all the gigabytes.
It's I'm as far as I know, I believe it's 16 gigs of fonts. It's ridiculous.
It takes a bit to download that thing. So if you have bandwidth caps, or you don't have high-speed internet, just choose one, and then you can choose two, and then use those. Don't download the whole thing.
Personally, what I like to use is I pick my one nerd font, which for me is Monofur, and then I also use the Material Icons font, which I believe that's from Google, but it's really nice for displaying different icons and stuff like that if you want to use them up in your DWM taskbar or bar, stuff like that.
So I use Hack Nerd font a lot. And mainly because that was the first one that I could get. I used that I could get to work with OMyZSH in the terminal. I've since bypassed that level of dumbassery or something. I don't know. I finally got past that point. I can actually do it with other fonts now. But when I first started looking for ways of displaying icons in the terminal, Hack Nerd font was the only one that I could do. So I'm attached to that. I also use JetBrains Mono a lot. I really like that. That's the main one that I use now for my bar and everything like that, is JetBrains Mono. But Ubuntu Mono Nerd font is also actually kind of good. So if those are the three that I kind of rotate between. But honestly, I'm not a font snob at all. My eyes, for whatever reason, a lot of the times I can't tell the difference between one mono font and the next unless they're really blatant differences. For the most part, most mono fonts look exactly the same to me. Now, I can't tell you, I haven't gone through and looked at all 9,000 different nerd fonts. It's possible that there's plenty of differences there, but...
there definitely is. I mean, most people can't stand the one that I use. Got, as I like to put it, more character to it.
Oh, you mean yeah, I can tell the difference between your Comic Sans and the rest of the things, because that is Comic Sans, bro. So Astrolol asks, should I switch to Qt Browser? Yeah, you should definitely switch to Qt Browser. At least give it a try. You won't be sorry. Just know that there are some websites out there that don't render it, so you should have something to back up when you come across that. It happens, especially things that require input, things like Tumblr and Facebook and all that stuff. If you have go onto those sites, those are the things that I had the most problems with.
So far, I use Qt Browser for pretty much everything, and the only site that I go to that I've noticed doesn't work in Qt Browser is Netflix. That's it, and that's only because, well, actually, if I installed the Widevine thing, it worked fine. But whatever, and just most of the time, I would just use Netflix in Firefox.
Yeah, F Society asks, "What is your favorite window manager?" And 3 letters. Starts with a D.
Unison.
Has a
DWM.
Yes, it's DWM. I think that's the way for both of us. I like Qtile a lot, and I think you're the same. You like Qtile a lot too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like the way Qtile only. Probably in the chat right now, but somebody's gonna tell me, "Well, Matt, you can have more than 9 workspaces in Qtile." I've never figured it out. I've never taken the time to figure it out, and I don't really want to take the time to figure it out because DWM comes with 18 workspaces for me. And if I got another monitor, I could have another 9. So, ArchSinner just joined the chat. What's up, man? All right. So yeah, DWM is my favorite, and I just
Same here.
I just like it. It's good. I like the ability to add patches and make it cool and twiddle and tinker around with it. And I understand C++, at least a little bit. Because somebody asks, you know, well, like you like to tinker and stuff. Why didn't you like Xmonad? It's called Haskell. I don't like it.
I'm not a big fan on Haskell either.
I can't get my head around Haskell at all. And I don't know why. Like after 10 or 15 minutes with Lua, I could understand a little bit of Lua. I used Haskell and Xmonad for a while, for like a month. I knew less at the end than I did at the beginning. It was like it sucked out my knowledge.
Someone said they like Qtile, but if they change, yes, that's the problem. Like almost every time update, there's a good chance your config file is just going to crap itself.
They mess around with that bar like every single update. They take out widgets and change the widget names and stuff like that, and then just the whole thing crashes and dies. Yeah, that's another good reason not to use Qtile, which is disappointing. They should have. We have a mechanism for that, right? It's called long-term support releases. Like release a long-term support release, people can just stay on that, subscribe to that, the stable version, and then test out the one in like a rolling release or something. So, I've been meaning to try Xmonad. You should try Xmonad and then leave running scared when you're done.
I might actually do that for the stream later. I've never tried it before. I've tried looking at Haskell and enjoying reading it, but that is a challenge.
Yeah, you should definitely install Xmonad. I will try to watch your stream, but it's gonna be late. So knowing you'll probably still be streaming for a little while. So I'll be in there eventually. All right, I think that is it for us this time. We've done our picks of the week. We've done everything I can think of for us to do, and we've been going now for an hour, which is surprising because it didn't feel like an hour. We had some good time. All right, so that is it for us this week. If you want to get in contact with us, the contact information was stumbled upon earlier on in the episode, so make sure you check that out. You can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/LinuxCast. Before I go, I'd like to take a moment to thank my current patrons: Devon, Chris, EastCoastWeb, Gentoo is fun too, Marcus, Maeglin, Sven, Jackson Knife and Tool, Joshua Lee, Mitchel, ArchSinner, Marek Camp, and Mr. Fox. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see ya next week.
Boy.
All right. We are still live, but
the recording, I assume, has stopped.
The recording has stopped, so that's what you'll get for tomorrow. So for those of you guys in the chat, here's how this is going to work. I hope you've watched the whole thing through, because this video, the replay will be gone. Right as soon as we stop streaming. Mainly because I'm going to go through and edit it. And I'll put up a video of the edited version tomorrow. Now, the question I have for everybody in the chat, did you enjoy the live show? Because if nobody enjoyed it, we're not going to do it again. It really didn't add, Tyler, I don't know if you agree with this, but it didn't add that much work. Not really.
No.
I mean, it was just a matter of being on time. Because normally we bullshit for 30 minutes before we even start. This time we just streamed that bullshitting for 30 minutes instead of doing it just between ourselves. So, please more questions. Save your questions for next week. We'll do it again next week, I think.
And I honestly don't know what we would ask or answer.
Yeah.
So I do have a question for you. If I'm going to check out Xmonad and everything, Xmonad does not come with a bar box, correct?
Xmonad does not come with bar, no. You would have to use something like Xmobar or Polybar. I use Xmobar, and it's just started like you would start. You start it in. You can either start it in the actual config file, or you can start via like an auto start file. But it's not very well configured. So the way Xmobar works is you have a separate configuration file for the bar, which is normal, and then you go through and you define your widgets in a certain way, in a certain syntax, and then you call them all at once in a single line. And so it's kind of like setting your DWM bar with an xset root command. You go through and set all the variables or the scripts or whatever, and then you call them all by name at the bottom. The thing is, and that's, I mean, it's not horrible, but if you want to change color of those things, you have to do all that in line too. So that one line for your bar at the bottom where you call your variables and the colors and stuff can be really, really long. It's just one fucking single line. It just goes on into fucking infinity.
Holy shit.
It's annoying as fuck. If you end up doing Xmonad while I'm on stream, I can shoot you my configuration stuff. Because I have the config files for both of those things. I don't believe it's on GitHub though.
Well, I think what I'll end up doing is just trying it out from scratch. I know some people are recommending try out config and everything. I think I'm gonna try doing it just from scratch, making it difficult on myself and seeing if I actually enjoy the experience of creating one.
You'll have fun, but I don't see you staying with it.
Okay.
Just because Haskell's going to drive you just as crazy as it drove me, I think. Although, if the language I would compare it to the most is Python, but the only reason I say that, the syntax isn't really all that similar, but they're both very heavily based in terms of calling libraries. Right. So at the beginning of the configuration file, you call all the libraries you're going to call. I think they're called modules in Haskell, but I might be wrong with that. But it's basically the same thing, just like you would in a Python script. So you go through and call all those libraries at the beginning, and then you can use them throughout the thing. It's annoying as fuck. It's so stupid. C++ is so much better.
Bruce said he just got done mowing and to replay. I'm going to give you a little hint, man. As soon as it ends, you can just don't reload the page or anything. Just click back at the beginning and you can watch through it again.
Yeah, as long as you don't reload, you should be able to watch it. If not, it will be up tomorrow. I'll edit it this evening, probably while I'm watching Tyler stumble through Xmonad. So
that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it says, F Society says it's your birthday. Do something fun, not enjoy the pain of Xmonad.
We're gonna try it out. If I don't end up enjoying it, we'll do something else.
The good thing about Xmonad though is you can recompile it and restart it directly from Xmonad. It's not like DWM where you have to do a hack in order to get it to restart like that.
Thank God.
So that's one thing that's good about it. Thing is, I popped into Xmonad like yesterday because I still have my my install of it, and like I want to like it so bad. I tried it. I tried it like 4 or 5 times, like over and over. It was like for a 4 or 5 time period where I was, what are you doing in Linux? Part was Matt was trying Xmonad again. I think I've finally gotten past that port because I was only in it for like 4 or 5 minutes yesterday and popped into the configuration file because I was like, well, I'm going to try to grub box this because I'm grub boxing everything. It's my new thing. And then I got to that Xmo bar thing and where you had to change the colors for the bar and wanted to literally throw my computer out the window because that one line thing is just a pain in the ass. Joshua Lee says Xmonad is one of those window managers where you tinker with the config over a course of months while using other window managers, then ultimately just switch to Xmonad. The thing is, I don't think that's true. I didn't switch to Xmonad. I just went back to DWM because that's where I'm happy. All right. Got anything else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to answer. Someone asked, "Do you live with your parents?" I don't know if you're going to answer this question, but I mean, I'll answer. Yes, I do.
Technically, I live near my parents.
Well, I mean, that's also true.
They're like in their 80s, so I spend a lot of time, helping them out. Well, why do I have a feeling that every time somebody asks a personal question like that in the chat or in a comment, it's social engineering. They're trying to hack all of your accounts and steal your identity. That's definitely.
Well, I won't be using Xmobar, so that won't even be a problem.
For a while there, I just used Polybar. Because Polybar is way easier to configure.
Yes, I just don't like. I'm one of those few people out there. I just really don't like Polybar.
You could use. I think you can use Tint 2 if you want to go that direction. But you're not using a bar. You might be perfectly happy with no bar.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. I've got all my time scripts. Like, I mean, if I want to see the time, I've got a keybind for it, battery status. So I can also have one that just shows me my subscriber count, which is nice. Like, I really don't need a bar anymore.
All right, I think OBS is telling us that it's time to go. I'm getting a red light saying that the thing is lagging. So anyways, thanks everybody who's joined us in the chat. If you are behind, you should still be able to continue to keep watching. If you want to rewatch it right now, you can not reload the page and go to back, use the scrubber to go to the back to the beginning. Once you reload the page, the video is going to be gone. So because I'm deleting it right after this. So if that's the case and you do miss it, the edited version will be up tomorrow. So thanks everybody for watching.